welcome you to Changing Your Mind About Stress and our journey the next 4 weeks into meditation practices and mindfulness practices. I'm Nancy Steck, and I'm with the New Jersey Lawyers Assistance Program. We have been providing, the Lawyers Assistance Program has been providing free and confidential services to lawyers, judges, and law students and law graduates for the past 26 years. And we're happy that over the past several years, we've added programs such as this, dealing with stress and other issues that affect performance and well-being. I'm particularly pleased since we have co-sponsors of this program, the Office of the Public Defender, the Association of the Associate Prosecutors Association of New Jersey, the Bar Association's Young Lawyer Division, and the Bar Association Special Committee on Lawyer Wellbeing. And I would like to introduce one of the folks who helped make today possible and the 4 weeks possible, and that's Brian Quigley, who's the Deputy Executive Director and General Counsel at the New Jersey Assembly Majority Office. And Brian's going to introduce our speaker this evening. Brian.
Thank you, Nancy. Hello, everyone. It's great to be a part of this program. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing the presenter for this webinar series. But before I do that, I just want to echo Nancy and thank all the sponsors. As Nancy indicated, I'm a member of the Young Lawyers Division of the State Bar, which provides networking and professional development opportunities to lawyers newer in the profession and also promotes community service involvement. So if you think you may be interested in those things, I encourage you to check the division out. I just want to also say quickly that while being a lawyer is certainly a worthy and noble profession, I think younger lawyers and lawyers entering the profession particularly can face stress in their day-to-day, which is absolutely normal. But that's why self-care is so important. Meditation and exercise certainly have served as an outlet for me, which is why I'm really excited to introduce the presenter for today. Susan Wilk is the founder of Focused Mind Dynamic and No Place Like Om. She was a practicing attorney for over 20 years, beginning her career doing criminal appellate work. She worked in Washington, D.C. as a senior attorney at the SEC in the Division of Market Regulation and Corporate Finance. Later, she joined the Office of the General Counsel, Corporate Securities Division at the Federal Home Loan Bank Board, and also served as general counsel of an IT company. She is certainly familiar with the pressures and stress of the profession. Susan has certifications in mediation training and has been teaching mediation and stress management to people of all ages and walks of life for over 15 years now. She has taught in the healthcare, business, private, and nonprofit settings, working with clients on, amongst other things, workplace, personal, and academic stress, anxiety, insomnia, eating disorders, and chronic pain. Susan is directing her efforts to assist lawyers and law students by customizing integrative programs to manage stress and improve their professional lives, using a host of techniques to help deal with the pressures of the profession. And I, for one, am very excited and looking forward to her presentation. Susan, welcome. The virtual floor is yours.
Thank you, Brian. And again, I echo everything Nancy said, and I thank all the sponsors for this opportunity to present to you. As you know, we're going to be doing 4 sessions, 4 webinars. Today, we're going to talk mostly about meditation, but a little bit about stress and the profession. Next week, we'll dive deeper into meditation techniques and relaxation techniques. In week 3, we'll talk about how our thoughts actually influence how we process stress and whether it can be an ally or an enemy. And then in week 4, we'll talk about living from our highest potential, because one of the things that meditation does is raise our consciousness, expand our awareness, and connect us with our own highest potential. So we'll explore what the possibility of that would be like. In this program, I'm using meditation as the cornerstone for dealing with stress, for changing our minds about stress, literally and figuratively. Meditation has an incredibly wide range of health benefits, and it does actually change our brain in the way that we respond to stress. The type of meditation that I'm using is based in classic traditions that date back in India for over 4,600 years. That's when the first written evidence of meditation arose. So we know it was practiced long before that. And while it's been practiced all these years, and the teachings of the ancient yogis are incredibly prescient, and now that science has studied meditation, we find that their teachings have been borne out by science. A little bit of housekeeping. I am not a doctor. I'm an attorney by training. And while I'll talk about the research that's been done and the proven benefits, especially health benefits of meditation, please realize that nothing that I say is intended to be a substitute for seeking medical advice. I may talk about things, for example, like blood pressure. If you're being treated for hypertension and high blood pressure, meditation can be a tremendous help, but it is not to be substituted for any treatment without consulting your healthcare provider. I can't switch my slides. Okay, let me just proceed without that. Sorry, I'm having some technical difficulties. What I'd like to talk about first is stress in the profession. I think so many of us in the legal profession are intimately acquainted with stress, unfortunately. And stress, well, it's a normal part of life, and it comes from let's see if I can do this again. It comes from a number of factors. It comes from happy things in our lives, like starting a new job, a new relationship, a marriage, a baby, a new home. Those things are happy, that's called eustress. There's also distress, which is the type of stress that we are familiar with. And that's what we think of mostly when we talk about stress. It can be workload. It can be things like the coronavirus. Any kind of change, any uncertainty triggers stress in us. And the thing is that our bodies and our minds do not distinguish between happy stress and sad stress, between eustress and distress. And what happens is our bodies respond, we go into the fight or flight mode. All the adrenaline is released, our bodies respond as if we're under threat. But what happens now in our day and age, there's no physical threat. What we perceive as a threat could come by email, it could come by text, it could be a service of process, it could be a question during a judicial proceeding, it could be having to make a decision in a judicial proceeding. All these things create this stress in us. So we have to be careful about managing stress because it can cause physical health risks. And in our profession, unfortunately, statistically, lawyers are very highly stressed. Our profession, unfortunately, exhibits a higher than normal rate of substance abuse, of alcoholism, of depression, of anxiety, and unfortunately, suicide. So it's really important that we learn how to manage stress and deal with it as best we can. And again, this is where the Lawyer's Assistance Program comes in. If any of you are feeling any kind of overwhelm or need help, please don't hesitate to reach out. Now, I've read things about the legal profession where people are just worried about admitting that they need help, feeling that they'll be replaced. The truth is, each of us has gifts to bring to this profession. As Brian said, it's a noble profession. Each of us has gifts. And if we need help, we should seek it. It's really important to realize that. Now, talking about how meditation changes our brain, it works in a multitude of ways. Among them is changing what is known as the reptilian brain, the most primitive part of our brain, which has to do with survival. Now, meditation, even just a few minutes a day, and I always like to tell lawyers, 1 billable unit of meditation a day can make a difference in your life. That's all it takes. Well, what we talk about very often as being optimal is 20 minutes a day. 5 minutes a day, 6 minutes a day can change your day. So that's what I'd like you to remember. It doesn't take a major life change, but it can make a difference. So with the reptilian brain, it slows down our heartbeat, slows down our respiration rate, it lowers our blood pressure. It stops that fight or flight response. It slows it down. And when I was thinking about this today, I was thinking about how with this pandemic, the phrase flatten the curve has become part of the vernacular. Meditation, in a way, flattens the curve of our stress response. We can't remove stress from our lives and our bodies still respond, but the spikes won't be as high and will return to normal a lot faster. So meditation can really come in handy. The second part of the brain that it impacts is what's known as the mammalian brain. This is the part of the brain that includes the limbic system and the amygdala. What happens is that meditation will suppress the limbic system, suppress our aggressive responses, our irritation. And it works on the amygdala to calm our emotions, to reduce fear and anxiety and depression. And again, this is something that has been documented. It's usually people meditating 20 minutes a day, and in 8 weeks, there's a big difference. But if you can only do 5 minutes a day, it may take longer, but cumulative benefits are still there. Even a little practice, the Bhagavad Gita says, even a little practice of this inward religion can save one from dire fears and colossal sufferings. And when I heard that, I remember the first time I heard that, I thought, sign me up. But it really is something that we can access in just minutes a day. The other part of the brain that meditation impacts is the neocortex, or the prefrontal lobes of the brain, this part of the brain. Prefrontal lobes govern our logic, our decision-making. So this is something that has to do with our creativity. And we know when we're stressed, it's like putting a brake on our creativity. We become more problem-oriented rather than solution-oriented. Very often we think about our mistakes. And these are things that, that are helped so much when we meditate, because it stimulates a lot of the creativity. It makes us feel happier, it makes us feel more well-adjusted. It gets us back into wanting to be with people. Unfortunately, when we get depressed and we feel that overwhelm, we tend to withdraw, even from our families, from our friends. So meditation helps us with that too. It helps with our sense of social adjustment. They did studies with college students, and they found that when they meditated, they really felt so much more a part of the community. And that applies as much to us as it does to those students. So it's something worth keeping in mind. Also, meditation increases the gray matter in our brains. After 8 weeks, when they measured, people had a higher volume of gray matter in the brain. So that is something that is very, I think is very, very beneficial. And some of the health benefits, besides the ones I just mentioned, when we meditate, the brain releases serotonin. That's a feel-good hormone. And they've done studies that had people who were meditating on one part of the room and people who were not meditating on the other side of the room. And they, of course, expected the people who were meditating, they knew that they would have serotonin increases. But what they found, surprisingly, is that the other people in the room had increased levels of serotonin. And part of the reason I mention this is from experience. I was teaching a class on, actually it was meditation for weight loss. And one of my students, well, it did help her with weight loss and kind of working with more healthy eating. Part of, she said the biggest benefit that she got was improving her relationship with her son, who was 17 years old. And this is a direct quote. She said, "I no longer want to kill him. We're getting along so well." And every week when it was time for her class, her son would say, "Mom, don't forget your meditation class." So it can help our relationships also. It's just got, as I said, just such a wide range of benefits. And there's no meditation that you do specifically to increase serotonin or to improve relationships. It's a package. It's a package deal. If you meditate, all these things can happen. Meditation also increases and strengthens our immune system. You know, stress decreases it and meditation increases it. And what's wonderful is that, particularly in this time of pandemic, having our immune system strengthened by a few minutes of meditation a day can be wonderful. As I mentioned, it helps with the fight or flight response. It helps with insomnia. People who meditated, I think, 10 minutes a day for 4 weeks. After 4 weeks, they were insomniacs. They were able to fall asleep within 20 minutes of going to sleep, which is normal. You know, for those of us who fall asleep as our heads are hitting the pillow, that's being overtired. So that's something to keep in mind also. You know, we are a sleep-deprived society. Meditation helps regulate our blood sugar. It lowers our blood pressure. It helps the body detox faster. It oxygenates our blood at a higher rate. It helps relieve chronic pain. On the mental and emotional side, it helps in our response to stress, as I was mentioning. It promotes positive emotions and a sense of calm. It helps us be calmly active and actively calm. It makes us less reactive. It helps us focus more on solutions than the problems. It increases attention span. It helps us with memory. And we know that stress can cause problems with concentration and with memory. It reduces panic attacks and anxiety. I once had a student, his wife came to a couple of the sessions, and she came back with her husband. And I could tell from the beginning, he wasn't crazy about being there, but he really tried. And I could see after a while, he started to really begin to get something out of it. Well, it wasn't until a few years later that I ran into them on the checkout line in a supermarket. And he told me what a difference it had made with his panic attacks. And he had never mentioned this during the class. But the poor man used to throw up every day in the parking lot. He was so stressed out about his job. And he was able to get past that just by meditating, which is a wonderful, wonderful thing. So I talked about the limbic system. Meditation can suppress aggressiveness. It also helps with grief. My own experience is coming to meditation after the sudden death of my mom when I was in my late 20s. It really hit me hard about 10 months after she passed. And I turned to meditation, which helped with the grieving process. And it's helped with the loss of other loved ones and the loss of a job, the loss of a lot of things. So it's far-reaching benefits. Meditation also promotes compassion, not just for others, but for ourselves. And I think this is particularly helpful for those of us in the legal profession, because I think we tend to hold ourselves to a very high standard, perhaps an unrealistically high standard. And, you know, we do the best we can, and sometimes we can't control the results. You know, we just can't. Sometimes we just have to do the best we can and try not to be too attached to the results. I know there was a lot at stake for our clients and for people that I was in a corporation. There was a lot of things in the corporation that I was working on. But we do our best, and that's all that anyone can ask of us, including ourselves. A quote from Buddha, I think, is beautiful on this topic of self-compassion. And he said that you, as much as anyone in the universe, are deserving of your own compassion. And yet sometimes we fall short in that mark. So it's something to consider. And as I was talking about my student and her son, meditation improves relationships, not just in our families, but with our coworkers and with our colleagues. Sometimes people on the other side of the aisle, the other side of the courtroom, and sometimes it's the people who push our buttons that we can have some compassion for. On the job front, some of the benefits, as I mentioned, include increased attention span, better focus, better memory, being more solution-oriented, being less reactive, the team building skills. But one of the interesting things is that when they studied people who had been doing meditation, and they worked with doctors and lawyers on this, they found that they listened better. Doctors were hearing different things. They were hearing greater detail from their patients. And I think that's because they were focused more. Meditation can also help us with time management and help us be more efficient. Meditation also develops intuition, which can be very, very helpful in all aspects of our lives. So now what I'd like to do is practice a little bit of physical relaxation exercise and a breathing exercise to help relax our bodies and our minds. And then we'll talk a little bit more about the positive things that we can do. So the relaxation exercise is called tense and relax. Now, probably this is not going to be news to anyone, but when we're stressed, we hold a whole lot of tension in our bodies. I think more than we realize. We hold a lot of tension in our calves, in our abdomens, hence the stomach aches, the digestive issues, a lot of stress in our backs, aggravate backaches, and our shoulders, and our necks, even in the jaws. Some people get TMJ. But that all of these things, especially the shoulders, the neck, the jaws, all that contributes to headaches. So all these things, when we relax our bodies, that can help. Now this exercise actually kind of tricks the body and beats tension at its own game, because what we're going to do is inhale with a double breath, a short breath and a long breath through the nose. And then we're going to exhale with a short breath and a long breath through our mouths. As we inhale, we're going to tense our bodies, and this really should be done standing up, but I can't, unfortunately, I can't do it from this setting. So if you want to try this wherever you are, if you want to try this standing up, it'll be fine. I'll give you a second in case you want to do that. So you're going to tense your body from your feet all the way up to your neck. You're going to actually tense to the point where we're going to vibrate. You're going to clench your fist, but we're going to tense in a very gentle wave, kind of low, medium, high tension. You're not going to go from 0 to 60 in 1 second. You could strip your muscles that way. But what this does is actually harness the tension. It grabs a hold of it. So when you relax, when we relax with the exhale, we're going to force the air out of our mouths like, and then relax the body. We actually release more tension. So the inhale, as I said, is short and long. I don't know if you can hear me, but it's through our nose. We hold the tension for a few seconds and then exhale. So let's begin. We're going to do this 3 times. So inhale, hold intense until you vibrate, and exhale. Again, inhale, vibrate, tense, and exhale. And one more time, inhale and tense, and really forcefully exhale. Just do a little inventory on your body. See if you can feel, you might feel some tingling in your hands and your arms and your legs. And that's actually the tension, the energy of the tension that was restricted by those tight muscles being released. And that's something you can do anywhere. It's a great thing to do. It's kind of a two-sided coin, because you can do it to relax the tension, help your body to relax before meditation, before you go to sleep, or anywhere where you're just feeling the tension. Also, it's also a great thing to do if you're on a plane and traveling on a long flight, because it gets your circulation going. It's a wonderful thing to do first thing in the morning before you get out of bed. So that helped our body relax. And that's the thing, you know, meditation, it's very important to relax the body and quiet the mind. So the next thing we're going to do is a breathing exercise. And for this, we should be seated. And it's important to sit with your back straight through everything we do in meditation, and we'll go over the posture a little bit later. but just sit with your back straight. We're going to close our eyes. And again, if you have any physical limitations, let me say this first. If for any reason it's uncomfortable for you to close your eyes, just pick a fixed point in your room, preferably not the computer screen, something that's a point on the wall, and try to make it slightly above your eye level. And we're going to inhale to a count, hold our breath for that count, and then exhale for that count. I will keep count for you. If my count is too long and it's stressing your lung capacity, don't do it. If you have any kind of respiratory ailment like asthma or COPD, just relax and just breathe normally. Don't try to do this. Don't tax yourself with this, or just do it for a very short count. I'd like you to close your eyes and place your attention at the tip of your nose and just inhale very slowly. Just take a few slow, deep breaths. And the key to this is to breathe with your belly. Use your diaphragm. Try to breathe gently and slowly, filling your lungs. So take a few, as I said, just a few breaths to relax. And exhale, and we'll begin. So gently inhale. Hold your breath. And exhale. Again, inhale. Hold your breath. And exhale. Inhale. Hold your breath. And exhale. And inhale. And exhale. One more time. Inhale. Hold your breath. And exhale. Now just allow your breathing to go back to normal. And take a few seconds and gently open your eyes. Now that breathing exercise is called measured breathing, and it actually triggers a relaxation response in your mind. When talking about breathing with our diaphragms, if you think about a baby in the crib, their bellies go up and down. And yet, as we become older, we start to breathe more with the upper part of our lungs, and our shoulders can go up and down. When you think about this, when you think about being startled, how do we breathe? And that triggers a stress response in our brains. So what we need to learn, what we need to do is kind of unlearn how we breathe and go back to breathing using our bellies, using our diaphragms. So what I would suggest that you try perhaps tonight when you get in bed, if you remember, is just to put your hand on your belly and just try to breathe. Bring your breath into your lungs using your stomach, using your belly. And we'll work more on this next week. We're going to do more relaxation techniques, more breathing techniques, and different types of meditation. So that's a little bit of how to relax our bodies and our minds a little bit to prepare for meditation. Another part about preparing for meditation is setting intentions. Basically what that is just consciously telling yourself that you're going to let go of outer concerns for the little while that we're here for today's purposes, for our time together, but for the time that you're in meditation. Sometimes it's helpful for people to picture putting everything in a kind of a virtual box and let their concerns go. But it's just a conscious letting go of outer concerns, even the good things, the things you're looking forward to in the day. So we just let them go. So when we do our next meditation, we'll include that. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about what is meditation. And for our purposes in this session, meditation is the inward direction of energy to shut off our sensory impulses, to kind of turn inside away from our senses. We're going to be trying to keep our bodies still. And the goal is to reach a higher state of consciousness and a greater state of awareness. Meditation is also when the heart is opened and the mind is still. We really can't meditate without our hearts. And there's been research recently that the heart has an intelligence all of its own. And some doctors think that it rivals the intelligence of the brain. But the heart is the center of emotion. Good things, fear, I can also feel anger and fear, worry, but it feels a great deal of love and peace and happiness and joy. So we want to involve our hearts in meditation. And we'll get into that a little bit more. Meditation also connects us with our inner sense of calm. And that is our essential nature, is calm. If I ask you to think of a time in your life, it's kind of, and I think it's Robert Browning quote that said, God is in his heaven and all is right with the world. If you think of some moment in your life when you felt that kind of feeling that all is right with the world, there's a quote also from the movie Field of Dreams. I don't remember it exactly, but it's something about all the cosmic tumblers coming together at the right time and everything just comes together just perfectly. And I bet we can all recall a time in our lives when things just fall into place. And in that time, if you call it to mind now, I think in that time, we think of the feeling that we had. And I think we all kind of felt like this is really me, without, maybe not consciously, but that feeling of, yes, I'm going to remember this. This is who I am. And that, no doubt, was a time of calm, a time of peace. And that's what meditation can help us reconnect with. That part of us is always there. That internal peace, that inner calm is something that is truly our essential nature. We don't have to do anything to deserve it, and we can't do anything to lose it, but we can disconnect from it. And in our society today, it's so easy to become disconnected from it. There's so much noise. We're so hyper connected. The world has changed, not just in the past few months, it certainly has with this pandemic. I don't think anyone could have imagined that wearing masks and having toilet paper would be, worried about having toilet paper and hoarding it would be part of our lives. But there's been so much upheaval. And yet still we can connect with that inner calm. In Sanskrit, there's a word smriti, and it means remembering. And that's also a definition of meditation. It's remembering who we really are. And that goes to that sense of inner calm. Meditation is also being in silence and listening. Very often we have questions in our lives. Something is changing. We may need to make a decision. I've heard another definition of meditation that prayer is asking the divine or God, whatever you conceive God to be, asking the divine, asking the universe for an answer. And meditation is listening for the answer. It's being still and listening. So all those things are just wonderful descriptions of meditation. Next, of course, there are different techniques to meditation. There's walking meditation, there's guided meditation, there's visualization, there's mantra meditations, and we'll touch on a lot of those next week. but today we're just going to do some simple things. But the most important thing I would tell you about meditation today, or one of the most important, is that you should never, ever, ever, ever think that meditation is not for you and that its benefits are not available to you, because they are. You know, people will say to me, I can't meditate, my mind's always chatting. Well, it's because you're alive. Everybody's mind is chatty. But we can discipline that. We can learn to quiet our minds. You know, we're the thinkers, not our thoughts. And it takes time. You know, you can't just walk into a gym if you haven't been working out and expect to bench press 200 pounds your first 15 minutes there. And meditation's a discipline like that. But our souls, our bodies, our minds actually, I think, crave it. And we can find that. We can find that very easily. So that's meditation. And I apologize again that the slides aren't working, but I just wanted to touch on one more thing that I wanted to cover today that was in an earlier slide. I don't want to get too ahead of this and forget about it. And some of the things I wanted to talk about were very basic and hopefully easy to incorporate lifestyle changes that we can add to our lives that help support our bodies in dealing with stress. You know, we talked about some of the things, and I think most of us are familiar with the physical impact of chronic stress. You know, we have the higher blood pressure, blood sugars, we have headaches, stomach aches, digestive problems, eating disorders. Unfortunately, we have a tendency to look to self-medicating and substance abuse. We get irritable. We don't sleep. All these things can contribute, have increased rate of heart disease and stroke. And meditation can help, has been proven to help all of those things. But there are also things we can do, as I said, to support our bodies. One of them is to be hydrated. Very important. If we're only 3% dehydrated, it affects our mental function. So this time of the year, particularly when we're going into the warmer weather, it's going to be very important to stay hydrated. And one of the best tips that I can give you is to keep a glass of water near your bed. So when you wake up in the morning, you can drink about 8 ounces or more, whatever, but at least 8 ounces of water in the morning. If you've been sleeping all night, you haven't been drinking, or you could slip on it during the night, but it's really important to replenish that fluid. And if you drink coffee in the morning or during the day, remember that coffee is a diuretic. So you actually are losing not just the coffee, but it removes other fluids from your body. It actually dehydrates you. So try to compensate if you're a coffee drinker. I mean, coffee has other health benefits, but hydration is not one of them. So try to stay hydrated. Also, this time of the year, we can do something that I've heard referred to as eating our water. When it comes to summer fruits, things like berries, blueberries, raspberries, strawberries are great. They have a lot of water. So to eat that, melons do too. Watermelon, of course, does, but watermelon and some of the melons are a little higher in sugar. So just be a little bit careful with that. Eating healthy is something that we can do also to support our bodies in dealing with stress. And there actually are foods that help us fight stress. They include nuts, walnuts, for example, that have wonderful omegas. Brown rice and quinoa help. As I mentioned, berries. Dried apricots, believe it or not, have a lot of magnesium that helps our muscles relax. Thing I would say about dried apricots, also very high in sugar, so be careful, particularly if you need to watch your blood sugar. Leafy green vegetables, of course, are wonderful. Oranges are great because the vitamin C helps with antioxidants and actually helps the body deal with stress. So do sweet potatoes, believe it or not. They contain large amounts of beta carotene and vitamins. So sweet potatoes are very helpful. Turkey, of course, has L-tryptophan, which helps us sleep. which is after Thanksgiving dinner, why a lot of us are sleepy. And again, water, while it's not technically a food, it's really a great thing for us to be mindful about. The other thing, of course, and it may be obvious, stating the obvious, is trying to get enough rest, trying to get enough sleep. And America as a whole, we're sleep deprived society, and this National Sleep Foundation actually recommends getting 7.5 to 9 hours of sleep a night. I don't know how many of us can do that, but something to be mindful of. Also, to carve out some quiet time, to disconnect from the electronics, from the cell phones, the tablets, the computers, the TV. What the Sleep Foundation recommends is 90 minutes before we go to bed. I think that's an admirable goal, but probably not realistic for a lot of us. So what I would suggest is try at least 10 minutes before you go to bed. Start with that. And maybe once or twice a week, try to do an hour. And if you read, try to read with a hard copy book rather than a Kindle, because the blue light, even with the blue light filter on, I think it still stimulates our brain more than we realize can help us, it can prevent us rather from falling asleep. Surrounding ourselves with supportive people is really important. And for those of you who might be in transition, when I was out of a job, there were friends who would say, I had a friend who would say, so how's the job hunt going? First question out of his mouth, which was not what I wanted to hear when I wasn't getting any calls for interviews. So try to be around supportive people. Animals, pets, companion animals are absolutely wonderful also. Just the very act of petting a dog or a cat or an animal immediately starts to lower your blood pressure. And they love us unconditionally, which is a great thing. So those are a few of the things that we can do to help our bodies. And I think we ought to consider that, those are easy things to do. Laughter is the best medicine. Getting exercise also is great. Connecting with nature really helps. And this time of year, it's so easy to go out, and I don't know about you, but I got out of the habit of walking barefoot on the grass. And it is such an amazing thing to be able to connect with the earth. There is something about the earth's energy that is so grounding, so centering. So spend a little bit of time barefoot in the grass if you can. Having a spiritual life, whether it's with an organized religion or not, is a wonderful thing to do. People who they were surveyed who have a spiritual life reported being less stressed than those of us who do not. So remember to laugh. Sometimes I think a few times in the past week, I heard the advice of don't take yourself so seriously. It doesn't mean don't take your job seriously. We all have important work to do, but just taking ourselves a little bit less seriously. And part of that is laughing. Smiling also is something that can help our bodies. Actually, just the physical act of smiling causes our brain to release some feel-good hormones. Now, of course, these days when we have to wear masks when we go out, people don't necessarily see us smiling. I used to tell people when you're walking around, just if you catch someone's eye, smile. See, they may not smile back. They may think, who is that person? But most times they do. So you're helping them, you're helping yourself, and chances are your smile might have gotten a little broader. But now I think we could still smile behind the masks, and the smiles can go to our eyes. So smiling is a great thing to do. And laughing again, of course. And the other thing to do for support, I'll repeat this again, is if you need help, if you're feeling overwhelmed and you just are having a hard time dealing with the pressures of life, please seek help. We have such a wonderful assistance program in this state. So, okay, going back to meditation. I'm going to, we'll just spend a little bit of time doing a meditation. We'll do a guided visualization. Now, before we start doing that, I'd like to go over the posture with you. As I mentioned, one of the definitions of meditation is when our minds are still and our hearts are open. we also have to have our bodies be still. So sitting is very important. Now you could sit, if you sit on the floor, and unfortunately I had pictures on the slides to illustrate some of these things, so I'll do my best to describe it. But if you're sitting on the floor cross-legged, it's a good idea to perhaps have a pillow, a yoga pillow, or a blanket, or another kind of support, just to slightly elevate your pelvis. It will take the pressure off your lower back. But that's a great idea for those of you who meditate sitting on the floor. For those of you who sit in a chair, and you know, when you see pictures of people meditating, there are people in the lotus pose, and almost always people are seated cross-legged on the floor. But it's perfectly fine and it's very comfortable to meditate in a chair. But the thing that's always important, if you are physically able, is to keep your spine straight. Part of that, we'll get more into this next week, is to elevate the energy. But a lot of it has to do, on a very practical point of view, is that it's easier to sit still when your back is straight. So if you're in a chair, the thing is, be careful, look at the back of the chair. If it's straight, it's fine. A lot of times backs of chairs are slightly angled. If that's the case, you're going to want to put a cushion or a rolled towel behind your lower back, the curve of your back, to keep your back straight and support you. Otherwise, you're going to be, believe it or not, leaning back is going to be uncomfortable over even just for a few minutes. It's going to distract you. And the thing is, if we start fidgeting, if we're distracted, if we're not comfortable, meditation's kind of shot. So if you're in a chair, just scoot back as far as you can. You want to get your sit bones back so that your lower back is against the back of the chair. Again, if you have something to support the curve of your lower back, that's great. You want your feet to be flat on the floor, your thighs parallel with the floor. Now, if you're like me and have shorter legs, so your knees are down from your hips, it's a good idea to put something under your feet to elevate your knees so that your thighs are level. It's a whole lot more comfortable. It takes pressure off your lower back. And if you do have lower back issues, I would put a little bit more support under there to elevate your knees just slightly above your lower back. It will take the pressure off your lower back and you'll be able to sit more comfortably. So we're going to put our hands at the juncture of our hips and our abdomen. Again, this helps keep our back straight. You're going to roll your shoulders back a little bit, tuck your shoulder blades together. Chin's going to be parallel with the floor. This will help you make it easier to breathe. We're going to release the lower jaw just a little bit. I mean, almost an imperceptible amount, but that relieves the tension that we hold in our jaws. And you could close your eyes again if that's comfortable for you. If it's not, pick that fixed point in the room and try to make that fixed point slightly above your eye level. Now what we're going to do is, and for those of you who are closing your eyes, we're still going to try to elevate our gaze slightly above eye level. So you could either hold your thumb out slightly above and just look at that and get an idea of where your eyes would be, or visualize that you're standing somewhere and there's a mountain in the distance and just look at the mountaintop. Then we're going to place our attention at the point between the eyebrows. In classic meditation, most meditations, this is regarded as the seat of our highest consciousness. It's also known as the spiritual eye, also known as the center of Christ consciousness. Christ being regarded by many traditions as the highest potential that a human being has reached in terms of spiritual growth and connection with spirit and what is possible. So we're going to keep our attention here through closed eyes. Now again, this is part of the yogic tradition. And then as we learn through scientific study, this is right in front of the prefrontal cortex. So we're stimulating that part of our brains. From a very practical point of view, keeping your attention focused here, actually helps you stay focused. Our minds naturally wander. So if you're new to meditation, or even if you're not and your mind wanders during meditation, do not be upset by that. It's perfectly normal. Just very gently bring your attention back to the point between your eyebrows. Just don't get upset about it. You're going to think of other things. And just let those thoughts go by. Try not to engage them. So we're going to keep our attention here. So, okay, so let's sit still, back straight, hands at the junction, palms up at the junction of your hips and your abdomen, eyes closed, attention at the point between the eyebrows. And we'll begin again with just releasing all outer concerns. Let's just take a few slow, deep breaths. Again, for these few minutes, you're just going to relax. No demands, family, friends, work, nothing. Grocery shopping, nothing. Just let it all go for a few minutes. Just take a few slow breaths. Bring your attention to the point between your eyebrows. Careful to avoid eye strain. Don't cross your eyes. And I'd like you just to go very gently beyond the darkness of your closed eyelids and visualize yourself floating in space. The soft, quiet, soft velvet darkness of space with stars and planets miles and miles and miles in front of you and behind you, above you and beneath you, to the right and to the left. Just allow yourself to feel that quiet, to feel that peace. And now feel as if the boundaries of your body are softening or loosening, so that the peace that surrounds you is entering your body and very gently touching every particle of your being, every cell of your body. Allow yourself to be filled with this peace. Absorb it. If your mind is wandering, very gently bring it back. Now very gently feel as if you're gathering that peace inside your body, tucking it into your mind and your heart. Realizing that it is a part of you, it will remain with you. And very gently return your attention to your room. Take a few seconds, and when you're ready, very gently open your eyes. Now, I hope that you were able to experience a feeling of peace with that. And I want you to recognize, if you have, that you didn't go anywhere. You're still in the room where you started, and the peace that you feel is within you. It really is within you. I know we're getting a little short on time. I'd like to do one more meditation with you. And this is one that I'm going to leave with you as kind of a homework assignment. I'd like you to try to practice this during the week, at least a few times. It's not something that you're going to need me for. I'll guide you through it the first time, but it's something that you'll be able to do on your own. Again, if you need to shift your posture just a little bit to return to where we were before, straight back, feet on the floor. Roll your shoulders back a little bit. You want to open the heart center. Just gently close your eyes. I want you to take a few gentle breaths. I want you to feel as if you're observing your breath, not controlling it, almost as if you're watching someone else breathe. And a suggestion to help you do this, it might feel a little uncomfortable at first or a little difficult. Don't worry about it. If you don't get the hang of it right now, that's fine. But a tip to try to do this is to allow the body to kind of let you know when to inhale and exhale. It's not holding your breath. It's not controlling your breath. But just inhale and then exhale when the body's ready to exhale. And inhale when it's ready to draw breath again. Just try that for a few minutes. Just a few rounds of that. Don't judge yourself if it's difficult. Don't feel like it's not working for you. Just, it might take a little practice. If you don't get it now, you can try it again. Again, try to breathe with the belly. Try to fill the bottom of your lungs first. When you exhale, it's in reverse. And now bring your attention to the point between your eyebrows, keeping your eyes closed. Again, eyes slightly elevated behind your closed eyelids. Careful to avoid eye strain. And on your inhalations, I would like you to mentally say, I. And on the exhalation, am peace. And I'd also like you to consider, when you say peace, what does that quality represent to you? What are the feelings? What would it feel to be peace? What would it feel like? An openness, welcoming, just whatever it is, calm. Just feel it in your heart, engage your heart. Let your heart tell you what peace feels like. Again, on the inhalation, I. On the exhalation, am peace. Do that mentally. Don't even move your lips. If your mind wanders, gently bring it back. Now I'd like you to focus on your heart and take the peace that you feel, peace that you're claiming, and feel as if you're expanding it and sharing it with the other people in your home, if you have them, with friends and family, with your community. Expand that peace out as if it's a light. Visualize it expanding throughout the community, throughout the state. Visualize it going north and south, east and west, and joining with the peace of everyone else on this webinar. Again, spread it north and south and east and west across the continent, across the country. Seeing it touch every person, every plant, every tree, every animal of air, sea, and sky. See it crossing the oceans till the entire world is wrapped in peace. And when you're ready, let that go. Let that peace go and return to the peace in your own heart. And when you're ready, return your attention to the room and gently open your eyes. That last part of the meditation is called expansion, and that's the final part of this form of meditation. It's sharing the peace that you feel, the inner calm. And I think our world is sorely in need of it. And it's energy. You know, that's the thing that the ancient yogis, thousands of years ago, millennia ago, taught that we are all energy. And now what we've discovered, you know, things that we thought were solid, we know are just molecules with space, molecules, atoms, ions, electrons, protons. We're not as solid. We are energy. Thoughts are energy. Vibration is energy. Sending peace like that is energy. So it's a wonderful thing to do. And I think it's something that, talk about being proactive and sharing that energy with others. And again, you know, this is when we meditate, for those of you who are home with families, it can help everyone in the home. It helps with our friends and our families too. It helps us. It really can transform the way that we handle things. So thank you very much. That's the presentation. So Nancy, I don't know if you have any questions.
I do. There are some questions that came in. The first one was, could you further explain gray matter? This was very early on when you were talking about the brain.
Gray matter is essentially the the mass of our brains. It actually increases the size of the brain, so which can shrink as we age, and it actually increases it. So the brain is more plastic than we think. Years ago, they used to think that the brain as we aged was just, shrinking and that was it. Once you hit your 20s, as you start to age, your brain starts to shrink and to lose some functioning, but it's really more plastic, and meditation actually helps expand that.
Thank you. And another question, how long should you meditate daily? Like what length of time is good?
I would say if you're starting, try to do, whatever comfortable for you. Optimal is 20 minutes a day. You could do 10 in the morning and 10 at night. It's the best time to meditate is in the morning. First thing, I would say try not to check your email or your phones. Try to do the meditation first, because it will set the tone for the day. Even if you do 5 minutes sitting on the edge of your bed, it will actually change the tone of your day. And I think once we get started with checking emails or checking text, it's hard to get back. We're off to the races.
And 2 comments for you. One was a thank you, that the session was very useful. And a second comment, thank you so much. This was brilliant and eye-opening for me. The first time I have ever been able to ease myself towards the ability to meditate.
Thank you. I'm happy.
And I think that's a challenge for many of us is, I can meditate for a minute and a half and then I can't deal with it any longer. So the ability to kind of ease people into that, I think, was one of the gifts that you have, at least for me, in this presentation as well.
Well, thank you. And, and I would say if you can only do a minute and a half, do a minute and a half.
Right.
That's fine. I know people who now can meditate for hours who literally who couldn't do 5 minutes, started with a minute. So, no judgment, just the benefits, as I said, are cumulative. And Saint Teresa of Avila, who is regarded as one of the world's great mystics by every religion, she used to have what she called meditations of distraction, and those are worth it. And even veteran meditators, there are dry spells. We all hit dry spells, and it's like slogging through the mud. And sometimes it's just the way it is. You just hit a dry spell and just keep going. But thank you. I'm happy that helped.
And just as a reminder for folks, this is available on our YouTube channel, probably a little bit later on this afternoon, early this evening. And you can reach that by going to www.njlap.org. And at the top of our page, you'll see a way to get to the YouTube channel. And if you're willing to subscribe, it will put us in a position to have an actual name for our channel, because we're brand new at this and can use some subscribers. So please consider doing that. I don't see any other questions coming through. So Susan, thank you very much for today. And I personally look forward to next week. And a thank you and greetings from Chile. So we have somebody in long distance. Thanks for joining us from Chile. And we'll see you practice meditating, and we'll see you next Wednesday.
Yes, thank you. Have a good week, everybody. Don't forget your homework.